It is Tony. I am back with another amazing episode of Women In. Before you meet my fantastic guest, let me tell you what you're listening to. Women In is a podcast that celebrates women and the individuals in their lives who are lifting them up. You're going to hear from a really cool dude in my life, and he's going to share his stories to inspire others to support all the extraordinary women around them. This is a space to be disruptive, forward-thinking, and change agents for humankind. It is uncensored, fun, and curiosity-driven. This is what I'm passionate about, breaking down the barriers for my kids' generation. It's equal parts about my guests and the places that we came into each other's lives, whether it be the Kalamazoo Wings, Mindfulness Elevated, Tony Will Coaching, or you happen to be in my family and friends circle. My guest today is I already called him a cool dude, so I'm going to stick with it, Greg Kettner. And he is on a mission to help 1 million people work happy. His inspiring keynotes, The Power of Laughter and Let's Talk Mental Health, empowers workforces to cultivate a vibrant, work-happy culture that enhances employees' well-being and productivity by prioritizing people before profits. Drawing from 27 years of sales and leadership experience with renowned organizations such as Nike, SAP, the National Hockey League, Business Objects, and BuildDirect, he has developed the WorkHappy Framework, which distills invaluable lessons into practical strategies that resonated with the audiences. A world-class connector, Greg has shared memorable moments with icons like Wayne Gretzky, shared the stage with Robin Williams, and even had a humorous encounter with Queen Elizabeth. His engaging style and relatable stories make him a captivating speaker. Greg's expertise in promoting mental fitness and workplace well-being positions him as a sought-after speaker and trainer and inspires audiences to adopt a positive mindset and build resilience in the face of challenges. His actionable advice and evidence-based techniques empower individuals to harness their mental strength, reduce stress, and enhance overall job satisfaction. Wow, how does it feel, Greg, to have your bio read out loud to you?
It's intimidating, but I'm gonna send this podcast first to my mom and just go. You know what? All you have to do is listen to the intro. That's it.
You did good, Mom. You did good. Well, let's before we talk about how we met, since you brought up your mom, what's your mom's
Yeah,
name? I want to say hello to her.
Carol.
Hi, Carol. You raised a good one. And I'm sure she was an integral woman in your life. I have no
Yeah,
doubt.
absolutely. Still is.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. I love it. So, Greg, tell everyone how we met.
We met through a mutual friend. I was in a mastermind group, and he said, "Oh, you are hockey, saw the Gretzky jersey." So he's like, "I've got a friend you got to meet." And so we kind of played phone tag or LinkedIn tag for a bit. And
Hmm.
then I found out that you were doing a TEDx talk with my friend Tony Rebelski, who's also been
Hmm.
on the podcast.
Yep.
And yeah, we just kind of connected, and then we both went through the loss of a parent.
Hmm.
And I know that for me, it was very helpful for friends and strangers just to reach out. And so I think I sent you a card. I hope I sent you a card and
You
just said,
sent
"Hey,
me
I'm
lots of
sorry.
cards.
I just went through this as well. I'm sorry if you ever want to have a conversation." And we've had a couple of heartfelt conversations. It was your mom and my dad passed. It still sucks, but here we are, and we're making people happy, and we're doing great things. I love your story about being one of, I think you said, 4 or 5 female executives in a professional men's league, which is awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. Greg didn't have this in his bio, but you're a fellow podcaster too. So I was on your
Yeah,
podcast and now you're on mine. And what I loved is, well, I didn't love this part, but while my mom was really sick and towards the end, Greg and I were trying to meet and I had to keep canceling on him. And I was talking about this on your podcast. But you hung in there with me, man. You
yeah,
did. Because I was like, I am so sorry. I'm like, this guy probably thinks I'm the biggest flake, like that I'm making this up. And finally I was like, let me just circle back once
yeah,
everything settles. And you sent me a card. And you did, you sent me a card and it really meant a lot because the art of the handwritten note, you just don't see it very often. And
yeah,
so when people take the time to do that, it really stands out. So a pro tip to anyone listening to this, go back to the handwritten note.
absolutely. It's amazing when I mean, I don't go into people's offices anymore because I work from home. But when I was at the Canucks, Vancouver Canucks and Vancouver Whitecaps, I was out there dialing for dollars like you and your team does. And when you go back into somebody's office or visit them, you would see the thank you card on their shelf. And that's because of the woman in my life, my mother. When we were kids, every Christmas in our stockings, we had a 10 package of thank you cards at the bottom of our stockings. And I don't know if it's true, but the joke is now that we couldn't play with our toys until we wrote thank you cards to grandma, grandpas, aunts, and uncles, and whatnot. So every
Oh,
Christmas, I mean, since I was 8, since I could write, we've been sending thank you cards, and I've gotten friends because of it. I've gotten deals because of it, and they're lasting because, like you said, I mean, we're stuck at a computer, emails, voicemails, text. But you open up a card that's not mail, and you don't owe somebody money. You're like, this is awesome.
I know. So kudos to your mom for that. And you know what? I think I'm gonna steal that. I think that's such a, even though
Yeah,
my kids are all
absolutely.
adults,
I, I,
they
I
still
sat down and spent an hour this morning. I had about 15 calls this week, and there were some people that I felt needed a card or that deserved a card, and I wrote them out. And it takes time, but it makes me happy, right? Because I know, because I've heard from people who've gotten the cards what they feel like. And you've even said that, when you got your card, you sent me a note. I'm like, oh my God, you sent me a note about my mom, right? That made me feel good. Probably not as good as it made you feel, but knowing how the other person feels. If I'm having a bad day, I'll send a card. It makes me happy.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip too. I mean, as we'll talk about work happy,
Yeah,
or just be happy. It's a great way if you're not having a great day to like just lift yourself up and to again get what I say is to get out of yourself and think about someone else.
yeah, yeah. What
So,
was your phrase when we were talking? Not
oh,
selfish,
self-full. Yeah,
self-full. Yeah,
self-full.
which is great.
Yeah, like instead of because women fall into this a little bit, especially moms. Like we feel selfish if we go get a massage or get our hair done or
Yeah,
whatever, and it's like no, that's self-full. You're pouring into yourself so you can come back and be a better version, and that ripple effect
yeah.
is really powerful. Let me ask you this because you touched on it, but to break this down, how do you decide who you're writing cards to each week? You said you had like 15 calls, so is that kind of how you
Yeah,
work
it's
it?
just, I mean, if it's a random call and you know somebody called up and they wanted to know how I use LinkedIn for business, right? And I already know the person. I probably sent them a card back in the day, but there was a gal that I used to work with. Probably 20 years ago when I was selling software, and unbeknownst, and you get this as well too. People just start following you, and then they reach out to you. And say, I love your work, Happy. I'm now working with a company, and they have it's an app, but it's not invasive. But they send out it twice a day in the morning and afternoon, and the employees will respond with emojis. Are you feeling good? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling happy? Um, and from one phone call, she introduced me to the CEO of her company, and they now want to work with me because when I go and talk to an organization, say, hey, here's the benefits of working happy. Here's the benefits of hanging on to your employees. Employees want to go to work. I mean, we all have had those jobs. The first time I remember when I got the job at the Canucks, I drove up from Seattle for an interview, and I lied to my boss in Seattle and said, "No, I'm sick." But I drove up. I left at 8 o'clock in the morning. I was back at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And on the way up, Krispy Kreme had not hit Canada yet, so I got 3 dozen donuts because I figured the border guards would take one of them. Um, and they did. They go, "You taking any food up?" I go, "I just got Krispy Kremes." And they said, "We've heard about these." I'm like, "Well, here's a dozen for you and the boys." And they go, "Just keep on going." So I walked into my interview with the Canucks, and I walked through the sales pit with 2 dozen Krispy Kreme donuts. Everybody could smell them, and it just I got the job, right?
Yeah.
Obviously I was qualified, but it's just sometimes it's those little extra touches like a note or a thank you or a pat on the back, whatever it is,
Hmm.
and it can turn somebody's day around. And when we were talking that self-full or selfish thing, if I'm not happy, I'm not gonna make other people happy. So I've learned that I need to be more selfish and take care of myself in the morning. So I have more morning routine. I go to the gym, I meditate, I read. I'm not on my phone or my email until I've done all that, and then I'm ready to to help other people feel the happiness that I have. And I've also learned too, sometimes we have shitty days. It's out of our control. But I now know how to go back and start.
Yeah. I, I love, I mean, all of that, and which is why it's not surprise. I love all of that because,
Yep.
and again, it's not surprising because we have a lot of the same mindset,
Mhm.
tools, and techniques. Because, well, probably because we're in midlife, and life isn't just this beautiful linear line where we
Yep.
start down here. You know, if you can't, if you're listening to this, it's just this beautiful straight line. It's not like that. It's up and down, and like we talked about losing a parent, that I mean,
Yep.
when you're in the middle of grief, it's looking for these things, right? The working out, the meditating, the handwritten notes, the watching something funny on TV or whatever. Like these
Yep.
are the tools to help get you in a better space that are healthy for you, as
Yeah.
opposed to alcohol or drugs, or alcohol is a drug, but or other things that may not be as healthy. And that's not to say, because people know I'm alcohol free, so I'm not an evangelist about this, but there's
Yep.
better ways to cope and to help lift spirits other than substances or
Yeah.
food or gambling or whatever.
Yeah. And the older I get, I've learned too that grief is a funny thing, right? There's different stages. My stepdaughter lost her dad to suicide when a year after we got married, and I had to go through that. That was, once removed, it was her father, but it was my wife's ex-husband, and so
Yeah.
I had to learn how to deal with that. I didn't know the guy really, but I saw the effect on them. But what I've learned since dad passed is that just sit in it, right? Like in no fault of my parents, I love them, but I was raised a guy. You're suck it up, don't cry, right? You skinny knee off, walk it off, or you get hit in the face with a puck, you're like skate it off,
Yeah, that's true.
right? But I'm learning to sit with it, and it it hits me at different times. Becky and I were at my wife Becky and I were at a fundraiser, probably about a month ago, and John Stanton, the CEO from the Seattle Mariners, was speaking. And he got up there and was talking about service and how we need to give back. And that was my dad. He was a medical missionary doctor. But even when he was a doctor in Canada, he would go on house calls still, and he was always giving, giving, giving. That that's why I do it as well too, because that's the way I grew up. And so he started talking about giving. And I leaned over to Becky because I could feel it in my stomach, and then it was going up through my throat. I'm like, I'm gonna lose it. And she's
Mhm.
like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I need to be by myself." So I filled my glass up of wine and went out in the parking lot and cried by myself for 20 minutes, and I was fine again. But I'm learning, even through grief, that it's okay to sit with it, and it's okay to be sad.
Yes, it is
Yeah,
okay to be sad. I know you, because you and I have had a couple heartfelt conversations as you opened with that. And
no,
there was a hockey game this season. I was just sitting there during the middle of the game crying, and my husband looks over to me. He goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, it's just stuff about my mom.
yeah,
And I'm like, I'm just sad. He goes, and I said, my throat, I go, I have sad throat. And he goes, what's that? And I'm like, when it's tight. And so I
yeah,
called it sad throat. And so now he's like, oh, I get it. And so I just say, now I'll just say sad throat. It's all I need to say. And he knows it's just
yeah,
stuff dealing with just the grief when it pops up. And you hit on something that's so key. We don't have to, one, feel bad about crying, and
yeah,
especially men. I want to point that out, especially
absolutely,
men, because there's a stigma, like, and that men, and depending on what generation you're raised in, and we're both Gen Xers, right?
yeah,
Like, so it's, our generation was more of the, oh, suck it up, you're fine, especially for young men.
yeah,
So it's okay, and it's actually good for you because it releases cortisol in the brain. You need to release those stress hormones. It's okay.
yeah. No, and I've learned that even through, even through when I was doing stand-up comedy. I remember one night, I had the privilege of being on a show, and Robin Williams got up, and it was a crazy night. I can tell a story later on if you want, but I remember he said, "Always make people laugh because you'll never know the difference that have on them." And I heard him, but I didn't understand him. And about 3 months later, I was running my own comedy show at a hotel lobby bar, and um, this father son walked in. There's about 30 people at this comedy show, and they were late, and they came and sat in the front row. They put their feet on my stage, um, but they're sitting there with their arms crossed, not having fun. I was like, that's weird. Why are these guys here at a comedy show if they're not laughing, having a good time? So in in my head, I was like, okay, my goal is to get these two to laugh. And as time went on, maybe because the other comedians were funnier than I, but they started to laugh and have a good time. And it got to the point where I said, hey, it was a small room, so I yelled to the bartender. I said, hey, bartender, can you get another round of drinks for everybody and put it on this guy's tab? Right? Everybody was laughing. He's like, oh, funny joke kind of thing. And so afterwards, I went up to talk to them, and I said, how did you hear about the show? And then Dad said, well, we've been coming by the show every Thursday night for the last 8 weeks, staying in the hotel. But we just been too tired. We haven't stopped. I said, and I was curious. I said, well, are you moving here or you haven't found it? Like, I didn't know what the reason why two guys were staying in a hotel for 8 weeks. And he said, no, actually, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. The hospital right across the street from the hotel. And he said, so every day we go and take her to the doctor's appointments, make sure she's comfortable and visit with her and all this. And by the end of the day, we walk by the show, but we're so tired we have dinner and fall crash. And so I asked the next logical question to the kid. I said, well, how's mom doing? And the kid started crying. And he said, mom died.
Oh.
So we just had this comedy show. I'm hanging out with these two strangers. Now there's three men in a hotel lobby bar after a fun comedy night. And we're standing there crying, hanging on to each other. And it felt weird, but it felt good. Like I had somebody to hang on to. And that was when I understood what Robin Williams had said to me earlier, because the dad finally got together and he said, thank you for making us laugh. It's the first time we felt normal in 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, and I was like, that's the message.
100%. 100%. It's like, and you remember when 9/11 happened? Of course you do. I mean, we all kind of remember where we were. And I remember SNL did, and I don't watch Saturday Night Live, but I remember they said, they did the first, whatever the first show was. I can't remember if it was a week or two after 9/11, but they were like, it's okay to laugh again, and how healing that can be. And it was really powerful. And of course, our country's gone through, and our world, more tragedies since 9/11, because that was nearly 25 years ago, which is crazy. Isn't it crazy? Yeah. So, okay, you talked about Robin Williams, but in your bio, we've got Wayne Gretzky, Robin Williams, and Queen Elizabeth. So you've got, related. Yeah, they are. And you were in stand-up comedy. So however you want to tackle, this one question I'm throwing at you, like, tell us more about that.
They were all kind of chance encounters. Robin Williams, it was a Tuesday night, and I'd been doing stand-up comedy for probably about 6 months. So I had solid 5-minute set of fart poop jokes. And I've always been able to tell a joke, but it takes a while to get up on stage and be vulnerable and tell a joke. And so we were there. It was a 7 o'clock show. It was a Tuesday night in a little tiny bar in Vancouver, British Columbia. And so it was all the rookies at the 7 o'clock show. There was a bartender, one wait staff, 5 comedians, and 2 girlfriends. And nobody was paying to get it. Like, there was 3 or 4 people wandering around the bar who needed a beer. But so I was third on the bill that night, and halfway through my set, the door opened up, and in walked Robin Williams, who was my comedian hero. Mm-hmm. And in my head, I was like a little kid. I'm like, oh my God, it's Robin Williams. And I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to say? I don't want to just, hey, can I get an autograph or a picture? So I decided as I walked off stage, I was going to pretend that I had no idea who it was. And it totally worked. And if you ever meet a hero or somebody and you just want to play a gag on them, just pretend you don't know who they are. It'll frustrate them, but they'll appreciate it. And so I went and grabbed a beer and I sat down beside him and said, hey, I'm Greg. And he goes, yeah, no, I just saw you. You're pretty funny. I'm like, oh, well, thanks. I said, what do you do? He goes, oh, I'm filming a movie, Night at the Museum. I said, well, that sounds like a fun job. Like, are you in catering or are you the camera guy or? And the poor guy, he's looking at me like, holy cow, John Goodman has no idea who I am.
John Goodman.
I'm either a skinny John Goodman or a fat Prince Harry. I'm kind of right in the middle.
You know what? No offense, but that is accurate.
Right?
If you're not watching this, everyone, go to my YouTube channel and watch it. You'll see what we're talking about.
Some people are like, wow, Prince Harry's let himself go. And so I just kept on, and he's like, "No, I'm filming Ben Affleck's or not Ben Affleck." I know I had a brain fart. I can't remember. Okay, Ben Stiller.
Yeah.
He goes, Ben Stiller's in the movie, and I was like, "Oh, I love Ben Stiller. He's awesome." And he was just like, "What the hell's wrong with this guy?" So I finally started to laugh, and I said, "I absolutely know who you are. I just wanted to screw around with you." He goes, "Well, thank you." And so then we had this whole conversation, and afterwards, it was time for the 9 o'clock show. So the guy running the room came up and said, "Hey, I'm so and so. We would love it. You know, if you're gonna stick around, can you do 10, 15 minutes? We would be thrilled." And Robin's like, "Yeah, no, sure, I'll do that." So Robin Williams started at 10 o'clock. He went till 12:30, 2.5 hours. Now there's bouncers charging $20 to get in. The bar is packed. It was one of the funnest nights I've ever had. And afterwards, he's like, "Greg, thanks for hanging out." And he got on his bike and drove off. And 2 nights later, I was walking with my buddy Ian to Yuck Yucks, which is a comedy club in Vancouver. I had not told him the story yet, and we're about 100 feet from we're just on a main street in Vancouver, and we're about 100 feet from the door, and Ian starts elbowing me in the ribs. And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Look, it's Robin Williams." So I looked up, and I'm like, "Hey, Robin." And Robin's like, "Greg, how's it going?" And Ian at 35 almost pooped himself. Um,
That's the ultimate flex, by the way, when Robin Williams is like, "Hey, Greg."
but that's the kind of guy he was, right? I mean, he was world famous, but he took time for everybody. And so we had a conversation on the street, and he said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "We're doing another open mic." He's like, "Well, do you think I could get on?" I said, "Well, do you have material?" Right? And he's all laughing. They're laughing. He said, "Yeah." He goes, "Why don't you go ask the club owner, but don't tell him it's me. Just tell him you got a buddy in town." So I went downstairs to ask the club owner. I said, "Hey, I've got a friend who just popped into town. He would love to do 5 minutes." The club owner was like, "Well, is he funny?" And I said, "Yeah, he's pretty good." And the club owner goes, "Well, if he's not, that's on you, and you're not going to give him much stage time." I said, "Oh, I'll probably be headlining in a couple of weeks." So I went up back and got Robin and Ian, and as we walked into the green room, Robin stepped ahead of both Ian and I and said, "Hey, everybody, it's Robin, and I wanted to know if you guys had met my buddies Ian and Greg."
Wow.
And all these other guys had been, they were headliners way funnier than us, been doing it a lot longer. But
Mhm.
here's the guy, one of the best comedians I've ever heard in my life, taking the time for two goofy guys that had a conversation on the street. And to me, we need more of that. We need more connection. We need more thank you cards. We need more hugs, more high fives instead of a text or an emoji. Go, "Oh, hey, how are you?" Even
Yeah.
even on Facebook now, if I have the person's phone number, I'll call them. What's going on? Are you okay? I'm like, "Yeah, happy birthday." They're like, "Oh, thanks."
You called me yesterday. And I'm like, "Oh, Greg's called me." I couldn't take your call because I was in the middle of a meeting. And then I did, and then I'm the
Yeah,
rude one that texts you back the next morning. I was
yeah,
tied up till 9 p.m.
yeah.
and I need to learn lessons from you.
Yeah, no, but we're just in that world, right? Where it's buzzsaw like that. And then the Wayne Gretzky story kind of happenstance. I was working for the Seattle Thunderbirds, doing ticket sales, which is the junior hockey. And my coach at the time used to play with Wayne back in the day, and he knew I was a big fan, and that's where I got the jersey signed. So he said, "Hey, Wayne's coming into town. They were up for a charity event for Ronald McDonald House in Seattle." And he said, "If you want anything signed, let me know. I'll get Wayne to sign it for you." So I brought in my game worn jersey that my brother had gotten for my college graduation, and we were doing this charity event. There was a bunch of games going on and stuff, and my coach called me and said, "Hey, I need to talk to you in the locker room." And this is what I love about delighting people, and it doesn't take much, but just going one step beyond. He said, "Hey, I need to talk to you in the locker room." I'm like, "Oh, okay," which was weird because I wasn't a part of the hockey ops. I was the sales guy. And so I go down to the locker room. I walk in there. Coach is nowhere around, but on the bench is the Stanley Cup with my jersey draped over it and Wayne Gretzky sitting there. He's like, "Hey, you must be Greg." And I was like, hi, Mr. Gretzky." He's like, "Dude, it's Wayne." And we had a 20-minute conversation. He's like, "So what do you do?" And he wanted to know all about what I did, what I was doing for Ronald McDonald, how I was helping out and stuff. And I'm just like, "Tell me more hockey stories." And so we had this cool conversation. And then afterwards, he's like, do you want me to sign the jersey? I'm like, yes. And he goes, are you going to sell it or are you going to keep it? I said, oh, I'm keeping it. So it says, to Greg, Wayne Gretzky.
It's
Built
so
another
cool.
Greg.
What do you think about because it was recent news that his record, some of his record was
Yeah,
broken?
the goal.
The goal,
Ovechkin
yeah.
passed him. Um, Gretzky's one of his famous quotes where records were meant to be broken.
Yep.
But Ovechkin doesn't have 5 Stanley Cups. He doesn't have. I think Gretzky at one point he had 87 records.
Yeah, I knew he had
So
a bunch. I was like, I couldn't remember which record was broken,
yeah,
but
he's still 1,000 points ahead of Ovechkin.
that's, I mean, 1,000 points for anyone that doesn't, I mean, 1,000 points is a lot
Right? Yeah, he's
in
like
anything.
2,300 points or something. So the day after Ovechkin broke the record, I posted on Facebook. I said, as of today, Gretzky's only 1 goal behind Ovechkin for the all-time scoring leader. He's been retired in what, 15 years?
And then,
So,
okay, Queen Elizabeth.
oh yeah, no, that was a fun story. We kind of scared each other um, when I was working at the Canucks. The Queen was in British Columbia for some sort of ceremony or whatnot, and they were going to come to the hockey game. It was a preseason game against the Sharks, and so for like 10 days leading up, we had to take classes on how, if we ran into the Queen, what we're supposed to say, how we're supposed to act. We all had to get security clearance through the police there in Vancouver, and we all had special tags on because we worked for the Canucks in case we ran into their entourage. And so that game, she did the puck drop in the ceremony. So she was downstairs. I was watching from a suite up at the 500 level, and I got a call on the radio saying somebody's down at the box office. There's a mix up with tickets. Can you run down and sort it all out? And so I said, sure. So I ran out to the elevator, and there's this whole long line of people trying to get on. I'm like, well, it's going to be 20 minutes before I get down there. So I said, I'll just run down the stairs. And so I'm running down from level 5, and about halfway down, I come flying around the corner, and I hear this, oh, and these guards like threw me up against the wall. Who are you? What are you doing? And there's this short little woman with the gray hair, and she's like, oh, bless you. I'm like, oh, bless you. I don't know. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to curtsy or what. Oh my God. I'm Greg, Canucks on ticket. And the guy goes, hey, so he checked my pass and stuff. And I said, it was nice to meet you, ma'am. And she's like, you too. And that was the encounter with Queen Elizabeth.
Hey,
But
I would
I
have
won't
loved if
talk
you would
her
have
over.
curtsied. I love all your celebrity encounters. Okay, I so I because we could talk forever, but we're gonna keep. I
Yep.
have so many questions for you.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
that's the celebrity section, everyone. I love that.
It's
All right,
funny. It's just random. Like I'm not a
yeah,
paparazzi guy speaking it out. It's just my life. It's weird.
sure, Greg. No. Talk to us about TEDx, because we both have that in common,
Yep.
and we didn't know that till we started getting connected.
Yeah.
And so whenever I have a fellow TEDx speaker, it's like an instant kinship besides all the other stuff you and I have in common,
Yeah.
because we know what goes into what is out there now in the TED platform. So,
Yeah.
how did you step back to where did you do it? What was the application process? I love to give some of the individuals who have TED on their
Yep.
bucket list to know, because I think maybe your story might be a little different than mine and they can grab a nugget from it.
Yeah. No, for sure. It was on my bucket list. I'd always wanted to do one. And I'm not a celebrity, so I didn't get asked. I did mine, the first one in Spokane, Washington. And so I just went on Google and searched TEDx, kind of in Washington State. And this one popped up, and they had a Google Doc with an application. They wanted to know what my big idea was. And I've always been a positive guy, and I've always enjoyed laughter. And I guess that at times it can be my crutch when I default to laughter if there's a tense situation or whatnot. And so I wanted to share with people the power of laughter and how it connects us.
Mhm.
And so I filled out, the 10 questions, what my title was going to be and my idea and whatnot. And it was during COVID. And I found out later that there was about 120 people that applied. And then we had an interview process. And so it was all done on Zoom. So the three curators, and I think there was 15 on my interview, and we each got 7 minutes to share our idea, and then they had 3 minutes of asking questions about what we do.
Wow.
And I got they liked my idea, and my whole thing was the power of laughter. Because when we laugh with people, we connect, and when we connect, our hearts are opened up to each other. We can have a good time and get to know each other on a deeper level. And then when we do that, then we can change the world, and that's the power of laughter. And so I talk a lot about that. Well, my whole TED talk obviously is on that, but also my keynote too, right? The power
Mm-hmm.
of laughter. And I know, it's 2025. And we can't tell jokes like when we were kids at the office, but there's so much. I've learned so much. I got to work with Robin Williams, with Norm Macdonald. Norm gave me some very good advice. He said, Greg, there's enough funny stuff in the world. You don't have to make fun of people's sex or race or religion or how much money they make. And that helped me in my comedy career because I kind of switched my angle, trying to make fun of life, certain observations. Um, and so I practiced. I had a coach, and we went through it. And it was COVID, so we were it was an 800 seat theater. There was probably about maybe 150 people in there. So it was difficult to do. And I remember the night before we were doing rehearsal, and I got to the last story, and I started to cry a little bit. And I stopped, and I said, "Oh, I hope I don't do this tomorrow." They go, "No, it's good. We can edit all this out," because I didn't know that. But I made it through the second night. I got a first laugh, and I wish they would have put it in the TEDx, but in my intro, right, they wrote a beautiful intro like you did for me here today. But it was this glowing intro, and I walked down on stage. I just looked around the room, and they said, "Please welcome Greg Kettner," and people were clapping. I said, "Don't worry about the intro. I have no idea who any of you are either."
Oh, I love it. Start with a laugh. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
right.
great
And
way
so
to
I
feel
got that
comfortable.
laugh, the anxiety went away, and I was like,
Yep.
"Okay, we got
Yeah.
this."
And have you done more than one, Ted?
Yeah, I did a second one last April on
Okay.
how to take a compliment.
Awesome. Okay. And how did it feel the second time around? Was it as exciting, as hard? What would you say about round two?
It was different. I felt like it was a lot easier to do. But it was just different. It was a completely different set of people, different set of circumstances. But um, you know, and it's great when people say, "Hey, I saw your TED talks," and now I say thank you. I give a compliment because my whole thing was, and I still do this even when I was practicing. Uh, uh, it was getting close to the time to record it, and one Saturday morning we were having breakfast. And my wife's like, "You're just such an amazing husband. I really appreciate you." And my standard thing was like, "Trying to keep up to you, ha 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 ha." And
Yeah.
she goes, "Have you listened to your TEDx talk, or you just practice?" And I said, "I'm
Smart
sorry.
woman.
Thank you for the compliment." And that's
Smart woman.
that's the whole TEDx talk, right? It's we all have that weird feeling like, "Oh, I don't deserve it." Yeah, you deserve it. Somebody took the time out to say, "I appreciate you for this specifically," and all you have to do is say either "You're welcome" or "Thank you."
Yes. And that
And then
is, I
that
mean, I
weirdness goes away.
exactly. I work on the same thing. I've been getting a lot better at it, just saying thank you.
Yeah.
And so would you want to do another TED talk, or do you have another one on the
Yeah,
list, or
yeah. If it comes up, my mission on helping people work happy and loving their job again. A big, huge part of it is mental health, and how
yeah.
do we be okay talking about it? And I was just speaking to 900 healthcare workers in Rochester at the Mayo Clinic, and I got off stage. It was intimidating walking in front of 900 people, but within the next 24 hours, I probably had 40, 50 conversations. People coming up and saying thank you. One gentleman came up to me and said, "You know what? I feel like I can talk about mental health now." And I said, "Yeah." I said, it's tough the first couple of times, but it's okay." And he went on to say that he was there at this conference, and his wife had taken her life 3 weeks earlier, and
Mm,
he didn't have the courage to tell him because of the
yeah.
shame and guilt.
Yep.
And so if there's an opportunity, and for me, the TEDx was never about me. I've seen a lot of them They're like, oh, look at me, I'm a TEDxer. I care about the message. And if one person laughs, if one person says thank you, or one person goes to therapy because they're struggling with their mental health, then it's worth a TED
100%. And
Talk. And
that,
just like you, I mean, yours was amazing as well too. The life journey you went on. I mean,
yeah.
you've got 100,000 views because it resonates with people, and people are like, oh, if Tony can do that, I can.
Exactly. I want to help women, break their whatever glass ceiling they have,
Yep.
whether it be in sports or maybe with, mine was sports and my relationship with alcohol, like and teach people how. And
Yep.
that's the same work you're doing. It's like not just talk about it. And I added humor into my TED talk as well because that's who I am.
Yep.
I like a good sense of humor is important to me. I don't take myself that seriously, and but also giving a message of here's what I did, and yeah, I've done some pretty cool stuff, but let me help you like learn how I did it so you can apply this. How and
Absolutely.
so the TED talks about we, not me.
Yep.
And I really was cognizant of that as I was prepping. But you're right, it was hard. It was
Yeah.
really hard and we love to speak. Both of you and I do. I mean, we love to get on a stage or get on a podcast or whatever, and we love to talk, but this is a whole different beast.
Yeah. The hardest part for me was getting it down to 10 minutes.
Yeah, you had to do
Right.
10 minutes because I had 18.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I only got 10. It was a 10-year anniversary. So they're like, oh, we're going to do 10 speakers at 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay.
Shit.
So,
Damn it.
but we did it. But you're exactly right. Like every time I get on stage and if I get the nerves or whatnot, I'm like, I'm here to help other people go through. Because 6 years ago, I didn't know how to talk about mental health, nor would I. I'm a
Yeah.
guy. Why would I get up there and go, I had a shitty day, or I'm struggling with overwhelm or anxiety, or you know, something with the wife or the kid or my finances? I'm not going to be vulnerable. But when I get up on stage, I'm Tony. I'm a can opener. I make it okay for for people to have those conversations. I tell people all the time, I'm not the person you talk to. I'll share with you what we did as a family, what I did. I've got a therapist. I don't go to him every week, but if something comes up, when my dad passed, I started going again. And after 4 weeks, he's like, "Yeah, no, you're doing everything good. So
Yeah.
why not go and get help from someone who doesn't know you, right? Because you and I both have a lot of friends, and if we're struggling, why would you go and talk to somebody? Hey, I think I want to quit drinking. Why would you go ask somebody who you used to go to the pub with, right?
Exactly.
Go
They
to someone
they
who's
talk
done
me
the
out of
school, who has all the tools, doesn't know you, and you can be totally vulnerable, and they can be totally unbiased. And that's the thing with therapy. But I think growing up, people are like, well, I don't need help. I'm a strong person. Whatever.
Yeah. All right, I have two more questions. Well, three.
Sure.
But we've talked weaving in and out of the women in your life, but I want to make sure I give it airtime because
Yeah.
I want you to share. You talked about your mom, you brought up your wife and your stepdaughter. There could be more. The women in
There better
your
not
life.
be.
Well, maybe you have a
Becky,
sister,
Becky, just you and Rachel.
maybe you have a sister, an aunt, a
Yeah.
teacher. I don't know, a grandma, but that were integral in
Yeah.
making Greg Greg. Who are they?
You know, I think first it would be my mother, and my sister Shauna. Both were still really good friends. We talk probably a couple times a week or at least weekly. And I was a late bloomer as far as dating and getting married. I wasn't married till I was 44, but she helped me through a lot of relationships. I'm like, I don't understand women. It doesn't make sense to me, right? So my sister was always there for me as a sounding board. And then when I got married, I thought once I found somebody to date, I would have my shit together. But Becky took a big chance on me, and probably likewise me on her, right? But we've learned how to blend our backgrounds together, the way we view the world. We're not the same politically, um, but we still have conversations respectfully about that. But she's been very good for me. Probably one of the biggest things is my self confidence, right? Even though I was doing stand up comedy with Robin, that's what people see, but that's not what people see when you're, at home. So she
Right.
gave me a lot of confidence. Rachel taught me how to to slow down and not talk all the time. And we have conversations, and it's been very beneficial for everybody I speak to that she's allowed me to share our story as a family. Obviously not the intimate details of her losing her dad, but and I think she's learned from me as well too. She has a good sense of humor. But now she has her friends, if they've heard the story or she thinks that they're struggling, she'll have conversations about mental health as well too. So they've grounded me, and they've made me who I am, and both of them have supported me the last 5 years. And if it wasn't for them, I would probably still be doing stand-up comedy or selling hockey, and I wouldn't be living my dream and helping other people and getting on stage and letting people know that it's okay to reach out.
Yeah.
So
Yes, for
yeah,
help.
those four: my mom, my sister, my wife, and my stepdaughter.
Oh, beautiful. Well, they're wonderful women, and you're obviously very fortunate to have
Yeah,
all of them.
yeah.
Um, you said earlier that you like to read, and I don't know if you and I talked about this, but I read my age every year,
Oh,
and
okay.
so yeah, so this year I'll be turning 47 in about a month, and so 47 books, and I also listen to 47 podcasts, not mine because that's cheating, but other people's podcast. And then I listen or watch 12 TED Talks because 47 would have been absurd.
Yeah.
So just one a month of TED Talks. So I just love hearing what people are reading. So what are you reading or what would you recommend?
Two. One by Ramit Sethi. It's I don't know my camera there.
I see it. Yep.
Um, it's money for couples, and I never knew. We all come from different backgrounds, whether it's religion, but money's a big stressor in any relationship or in any marriage. And this guy, it just we sit down every Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, and we read a chapter, and it's interesting. We've had conversations that we haven't had in 12 years of dating and marriage. So, and it's all based around money. Well, what, when this situation happens, what do you think? So our answers are different, but now it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense, right? So that's a great one for any couples. And then if anybody's in business or sales or any building a story brand with Donald Miller. Have you
I
read
like
this?
Donald Miller. I haven't, but I like Donald Miller. Have you read
Yeah.
Hero on a Mission by him?
Yep. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
all
that's
this
a
stuff
good.
is great. I listen to the podcast and everything, but highly recommend Donald Miller. It's a fascinating. He breaks down the story into 7 different steps.
Okay.
And I not only use it on my talks, but in my sales and my email campaigns, everything. Because stories are sticky, and I think it was Maya Angelou. People won't remember what you said; they'll remember how you made them feel. But
Hmm.
if you tell a story, right, people come up to me like, "Oh, you're the Robin Williams guy," or your daughter, stepdaughter, lost her dad to suicide,
Hmm.
right? Instead of getting up there with a PowerPoint, you know, 12 fonts, 50 different bullet points of that. So yeah, both of those have been very helpful, not only in
Okay.
my marriage but in my business.
I can't wait to read them. They're on my list now.
Yeah,
Um, to wrap us up, Greg, if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
probably the best just my website gregkettner.com, or I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn,
Okay, great.
or
And
Tony's podcast.
what's that?
Your podcast. Yeah,
Yeah, my podcast. And you can always find I can get you to Greg too. So I got a cell phone number. So I am
yeah.
special. Um, well, thank you, Greg, for coming on. And
Well, thank you.
it's so much fun to get to know you
It's
even
been a
more.
pleasure, and this is only the beginning of the journey. I can't wait to share a stage with you,
Yeah.
and maybe we'll write a book together one day about our lives in hockey.
I think that'd be funny. Oh, and we have another thing in common, real quick. We live in a politically divided household as well, and not in a bad way. Josh and I, we're opposing views, but we respect each other's
Yeah,
opinion, and it's okay. So I
yeah. I
love
heard a
that. I
great
mean,
podcast the other day with two of my podcast heroes, Arthur Brooks and Simon Sinek,
yep,
and they were talking about how we can separate the person from their beliefs. You can
yes,
still love somebody. You don't have to understand the way they believe, but you can respect it. You can ask questions, and if you do that in a kind and loving manner, you can learn. It's the
absolutely. I
division that
love
gets me. I'm right, you're wrong. No, that's not true. We're
that. No,
we're all individual people, but we can love the person and not agree with their
I love that because
opinion.
that's exactly how I feel about my
Yeah.
marriage and all that. So great. Well, if you all are looking to find me, I'm not hard to find. Facebook and LinkedIn at Tony Lentini Will. Instagram, I'm Tony Will. If you're looking for the hockey side, kwings.com. If you're looking for coaching, lifestyle coaching, or professional development coaching, mindfulnesselevated.com or tonywillcoaching.com. And until next time.